And so, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shivering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on cynicalbrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. The date today is the 30th of April, 2010. It is 8 p.m. British Standard Time. It is 3 p.m. EST. It is 9 p.m. Central European Summer Time. Now accounting for the fact that we have quite a few listeners over there. I should probably acknowledge them in some respect. My name is TotalBiscuit. I am on the stream. I'm on the cam, looking like I'm going to make you an offer that you can't refuse. I'm pretty sure they don't sound like that, but hey, what have we got coming for you in the show today? I shall tell you. Yes, indeed. Things have been happening, folks. Big developments, as it were. Very much so. So, some of you may, in fact, have noticed. MMO Champion will tell you there's been some big changes made, ladies and gents. Oh, yes, many changes. And we've got Cataclysm raid information coming up for you later on the show. Big deal. Lots of people are upset. I'm going to laugh at them. Absolutely. And anyone that said I got the raid... Why would anyone say that I've got the date wrong? It's the 30th of April, 2010, you noobs. It's as simple as that. Never listen to the chat room, ladies and gentlemen. What have I got coming up for you? I've got that, and I've also got information regarding the upcoming badge changes, or non-changes, as is more accurate. We're talking about that a little bit later on the show. Your chance to contribute, as always, it is the illusion of choice. Email the Murloc at cynicalbrit.com. That is the Murloc at cynicalbrit.com. And we'll get things sorted out. See whether or not you've got anything worthwhile to add to the show. We shall see. It's been a good week for drama, folks. It's been a good week for discussion. Well, that's actually a lie, it hasn't. People are terrible at discussing these changes. Absolutely abysmal, really. They don't look at it in a reasonable respect in any way. You know what the crazy thing is? The worst thing is that you have to come to this show to hear a non-sensationalist view of this particular change. That's nuts. I'm sorry, it is. I mean, the most sensationalist show, aside from some terrible show hosted by people with names like Poultry. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Poultry, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, that's pretty sensationalist, but that's mostly them crying on air. You won't hear any crying on air on this show, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of shouting, perhaps. We shall see. Otherwise, it's been a pretty good week overall. Not really got an awful lot done in WoW. Still trying to decide which realm to go to. No idea. Might be the annual change back to the Total Halibut names, and some fanboy's gone and stolen the Total Biscuit name in all the realms. Having said that, of course, that is not remotely unreasonable, and they are entirely entitled to this particular name. No, I'm kidding, of course. They're idiots and retards, and they need to be thrown down a well. Possibly a well that's on fire. Like that well in the middle of the ocean right now that seems to be leaking oil everywhere. Good lord. Get in the chat room, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening live. If you're not, well, you're missing out. Tune in live every Friday. That would be for the best of your health. Yes, indeed. Signalbrit.com, click the chat button at the bottom of the screen, get involved. The video wall is up. There are many people in there. We have a rotating Murloc, an empty chair, a token black man, a guy in a large hat, a guy who barely looks at the screen and seems to be playing some kind of video game, some guy on that retarded horse, some guy that looks to be utterly stoned, some guy that I can't see because he's out of focus, a guy in a gas mask, the protagonist from Prototype, and something. Yes, indeed. Good stuff. Right, ladies and gents, shall we get on with it? I think that's probably a reasonable bet. Let's make it happen.
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it is time for the mail. Let's go and have a look and see what we've got in the mailbag. We have many things. A lot of email today. So let's try and clear through it as quickly as possible. Now, I did star these. Where the hell have they gone? Yes, there we go. Makes things easier. Come on, Gmail. Cooperate. Here we go. Question from Jason Kofi. He says this. First of all, love all your shows and other sycophantic ramblings. Oh, dear Lord. Let's get past that. Right, I just wanted to comment on your view on making heroics hard again. Of course, crowd control would be a way to start the shift, but if you make the demand so great, i.e. Magister's Terrace, classes that don't provide a method of CC will have a hard time finding a group. Yes, I understand you could run with guildies, but purely from a random sense, it causes undue cherry-picking. I can only imagine getting an instant vote kick because my cat druid doesn't have viable crowd control. Right, well, I suppose that is possible, honestly. But you've also got to bear in mind, with all this nonsense homogenization, the one silver lining of the whole thing is that you should have some form of crowd control, I would imagine, in Cataclysm, as will everyone else. That's something you've got to bear in mind. And also bear in mind that you don't necessarily have to have everyone with crowd control. I mean, you're not going to have a situation whereby you have to have 3 guys doing CC. That's just not going to happen. So in a 5-man group, you've got your tank, you've got your healer, and then you've got 3 potential guys who've got CC, who may have CC, and you might need 1 to 2 of them. And I would imagine that it would be properly balanced to make that happen, and ensure that you don't get matched into a group that's like all cat druids, which of course would wreck everything. That would be pretty dumb. I wouldn't put it past them, but you never know. I'm hoping that that is not an issue. I really hope that it isn't, because that would just be so utterly stupid. I understand your point of view, though. But you've also got to bear in mind that right now the concern is getting good 5-man content into Cataclysm, because otherwise what happens to Wrath happens to Cata. And Cata's supposed to be the Great White Hope, or in the case of Deathwing, the Great Black Hope, or in the case of Beedrone, the Great Black Hope, whatever the case. I want to see good 5-man content. I want to see heroic content on the level of TBC, and if that means Magister's Terrace, so be it. And honestly, I'll make the compromise and say if that means a little bit of class homogenization, so be that as well. Give everyone crowd control. I don't care. I just want some fun content. You got to pick your battles, ladies and gentlemen. And if I've got to pick between one and the other, then I absolutely, every time, will pick fun content. That makes sense. Also, I'm late to the game, but I wonder what the beef was between yourself and the Bind on Equip or podcast or whatever. If entertainment is the ultimate goal, and they all seem to accomplish the same goal, in any event, thanks for your hard work. I was a beef over Twitter a little while ago. Bind on Equip and Turkey Cast and some other retarded podcast decided it would be a good idea to go and rail on a show that I quite like. It's not really my thing all of the time. The kind of humour doesn't sort of gel with my particular sensibilities because I'm English and evidently above you all as a direct result of that. But they decided to hop on at an explicitly marked podcast. Bear in mind, it's disclaimed, it's got explicit marked on it in iTunes, and they decided to rag on it over Twitter. They tried to gang up on the guys for swearing. Right. Okay. And in doing so, I might add, used way more offensive phrases and terms than was ever done so on the show in question. Hypocrites. Bleeding hearts are always hypocrites, ladies and gentlemen. Just bear this in mind. Every time you find a bleeding heart in life, every time you find someone that believes they can ride around on that retarded moral high horse of theirs, whether or not it be blue, sparkly, or otherwise, then just beware that person. Because those people are the worst. They really are. Those people are always the most cruel, the most mean-spirited, and indeed I would go as far as to say evil. Seriously, they are. Give me an honest guy who is angry a lot and doesn't like people and isn't afraid to show it. Give me one of those. At least you know what you're getting with a person like that. When it comes to bleeding hearts, all you end up getting is stabbed in the back. That I can guarantee you. There are genuinely nice people, there are genuinely nasty people, and then there are the bleeding hearts, which are worse than both put together. Alright, ladies and gents, let's get on. Plenty more mail to go, and plenty more content to go as well today. I've got a surprise for you later on the show, by the way, so you might want to stay tuned. Hey, TB, do you think that Blizzard will come up with any new or unique, I would assume, boss abilities or mechanics for Cataclysm? At this point, one has to wonder if they could think of anything new that wouldn't just be an old mechanic with a twist. That's from Ragavale of Doomhammer EU. I kind of get your point there. You got to bear in mind that most of the really interesting boss mechanics are actually those that are just spins on something else. When you break everything down to its very core, a boss mechanic is always going to be similar to another boss mechanic. It depends just how far you want to dissolve it down to its base elements. I mean, think about it. You've got boss mechanics that seem complex, but when you really look at them, when you break them down to the basics, it's like, oh, well, this is just tank and spank with this added onto it. I have no doubt that Blizzard could come up with some interesting boss mechanics, honestly. I know ICC gives you the impression that perhaps not, but you've got to bear in mind there are some nice boss mechanics in there. For instance, Mark of Fallen Champion, the blood mechanic from Deathbringer Salfang, that's pretty new. The entirety of the flying thing, you know what I'm talking about, the airship battle, that's pretty new. Most of Putricide is pretty new as well. The Festagut encounter, that's pretty new. Rotface had some interesting stuff in there as well. Syndragoza, it was kind of recycled, but the thing about Syndragoza is that it builds on existing mechanics and makes them tougher. It makes them more complex, and it's okay to do that. Honestly, it really is. Build on the success of what you did previously, and you will get a better result. Honestly. Sounds like a fair point and a fair idea to me. But yeah, I would never underestimate Blizzard's propensity to come up with something interesting, honestly. There is no reason to do so. Right, moving on, ladies and gents. This one's from Frode, and he says this: I'm just wondering if you actually notice any difference between PvE and PvP realms anymore. When was the last time you were actually in a fight against someone from the opposing faction? Don't you think World PvP has died since they introduced the flying mount? And damn, I hate people who say Wintergrasp is World PvP. It is not. Well, I can't disagree with that. It's a battleground that you can accidentally wander into. It's kind of annoying, actually, because I can end up flying over it while it's in progress and then falling to my death. It's not helpful, honestly. I wish it would just be all the way over there, just not in the way whatsoever. There are differences, and to be honest, those differences tend to wax and wane depending on the release of expansion packs. Yes, I would agree, flying mounts do make World PvP kind of tricky, but also bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that you cannot fight in the air. So, you can't be doing any questing whatsoever. Honestly, it was the same argument that was put together when people said that epic mounts killed World PvP. Just normal epic land mounts. Like, oh, well, they can run away and there's no way to catch them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but to be honest, that's never what happened with World PvP anyway. World PvP sort of breaks down to, do you see a red guy? Do you see an enemy guy? Is it near your quest hub? Is it maybe killing your mobs? Then I gank it. I like ganking. Ganking is fun. I have no issues with that. If you don't like it, roll PvE. I would prefer the option to kill a snivelling, dirty Alliance bastard than have to stand there and, chain emote or something like that. So it's not particularly aggressive, is it? The answer would have to be, what are we supposed to use? Harsh language? Well, evidently. But we can't do that either because we can't speak to them. So I suppose we type /rude and /wrath over and over again. Yeah, fantastic. Or not, as the case may be. Bloody awful, more like it. I really cannot stand having to tolerate those people. No, really. Honestly. I can't stand it. Okay, we've got time for one last email if we're quick. Hey, TB, long time listener, first time writer. This is from Gundolf of Steam Wheel Cartel. You've recently expressed the dislike for having to run a normal raid before being able to raid on heroic mode. Recently, Blizzard announced their plans for raids in Cataclysm. It seems they're making things even worse. I remember some interview with big guilds in the show Pug a while ago on WoW Radio, and they expressed that they didn't quite like the fact that normal and heroic progression were non-linear, and they were quite like that Blizzard did exactly what they have done in ICC. It seemed to me a good idea when I thought about it at the time, but now that they've implemented it, it's quite clear it doesn't quite work, well, at least for most people. On the other hand, I am pretty sure that the big guilds are happy they can finally complete everything in a linear fashion. Wouldn't it be better to just have it on a boss-by-boss basis, so that when you beat a boss on normal, then you are allowed to go back for that specific boss on heroic? You do realise that's what they're doing, right? Did you read the description? That's what it says. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, I absolutely agree that that's what's going to be happening, because that's what's going to be happening. The rundown of it is that they're going to let you kill a normal boss a few times, yeah? Basically, you've got to get it on farm. Once you get the boss on farm, and you've proven that you can beat it multiple times in a row, then you get to do it on heroic. And you don't have to complete the instance. That's it. It's simple as that. I've got no problems with that whatsoever. And personally, I'd prefer no gating at all and just say, hey, go heroics. But I'm okay with that as a compromise, honestly. It also allows them to balance their fights a little bit better, and they can bring the gear element in there as well. If they know that people attempting, say, the first boss of an instance on heroic are at least going to have a few bosses worth of gear to help them out. So that helps with the tuning. If you design an encounter whereby you cannot assume any level of gear whatsoever, then tuning the heroics can be a little bit trickier. And therein lies the problem with that. So I am okay with this form of gating. I don't really like gating in general, but overall, it's not a bad system, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I will be right back after this, folks. Enjoy. You are listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on CynicalBrit.com.
Live from the Blue Please Tower in Howling Fjord, it's Nupcake News with award-winning anchor TotalBiscuit, bringing you all the news that matters, whether you realize it or not.
Welcome to this week's edition of Nupcake News. Coming up later in the program, an exclusive look at the new Naxxramas instance planned for Cataclysm. Blizzard says it's okay to recycle it because the Wrath version was, quote, entirely forgettable. But first, public outcry has occurred over plans to restrict players from gaining arena points by doing both 3v3 and 5v5 formats in the same week. Opponents of the new and never-before-seen change claim that their playstyle is being ruined and that 5v5 is now dead. This shocking announcement came as a surprise to 5v5 players who are now thought to have applied for zombie counselling in the Undercity to help cope with their newfound lack of life. We spoke to the leader of the opposition, Mr. Foxtail, who had this to say.
As far as I'm concerned, if we have the time to do both 3v3 and 5v5, there is no reason why we shouldn't get the full benefits of both. We request, nay, demand that restrictions on the number of arena points and where they come from be completely removed.
Mr. Foxtail, let me ask you this. Don't you think that this would cause some genuine balance issues, with those capable of playing both 5v5 and 3v3 games gaining far more gear at a far greater speed than those who only choose to play 3v3?
Nonsense! Nobody really cares about arena rankings anyway. Who cares if we can get a full set of the latest PvP gear 3 times faster than the 3v3 players? They made their choice by choosing not to have loads of free time. With a change like this, 5v5 arena is dead. Dead, I tell you!
But don't you get far more arena points from 5v5 games on a weekly basis anyway? Surely that's a significant benefit to playing them, and more to the point, sir, isn't it simply a matter of preference as to which type you play?
Absolute codswallop! 5v5 is the only valid play style in arenas. It is the true style. 3v3 was brought in to appease the casuals. Back in my day, men were men, and we played exclusively 8v8 arenas. Ah, yes, those were the days, but no, they had to take out those epic battles, and now we're stuck with 5v5. Soon those will be removed too, mark my words. In a year or less, we'll have no choice but to play 1v1 arena matches.
Thank you, Mr. Foxtail, that was very illuminating. I'm getting news just in, ladies and gentlemen. A further Blizzard statement on the matter has just been released, which has annoyed at least 10 World of Warcraft subscribers. A copy was delivered to our news desk just a few moments ago, and we can read it for you here first.
Dear bovine dumb subscribers, in conjunction with our change to the arena system, we would like to make you aware of some additions. In order to properly balance our new arena system, we are ensuring that characters fighting in 3v3 and 5v5 arenas have the same hit points. As some of you are no doubt aware,
players in 5v5 arenas had approximately 140% more hit points than players in 3v3. They also hit harder and created more void zones, which is not conducive to a balanced arena environment. So as of this very moment, players in the arena, regardless of size, will have roughly similar hit points. Furthermore, as a reflection of this change, we will be offering the same gear to both 3v3 and 5v5 arena players. We of course recognize the logistical realities of organizing larger groups of people, so while the loot quality will not change, 5v5 versions will give a larger quantity of loot per player, making it the more efficient route if you're able to gather the people. You will of course be able to opt out of all of these by simply paying $25 at the Blizzard store. When asked for comment, the opposition screamed from the rooftops, 5v5 is dead! Dead, I tell you! This has been Upcake News. Good night. Yes, indeed, folks. A point has been made, and if you don't get the satire, well, you are kind of silly. That said, I must say that people on the internet have a propensity to be very easily fooled and or trolled, as we have discovered, indeed, quite recently. Yes, I love it. You know what? This show would not even be half as successful if people were not so utterly predictable and amazingly gullible. It's good. It feels good. I'm basking in it. What can I say? Okay, let's talk about this. So, possibly one of the biggest changes to hit rating ever. You might want to have a look at it, ladies and gentlemen. Popping that one in the chat room for you if you haven't already seen it. If you're listening to the podcast, of course, it will be in the show notes on cynicalbrits.com. Go and have a look at it. Right. The essence of this is a manifesto for what's going to be happening with Cataclysm, and this is in terms of raiding. So there's the main points to cover, and there is the resulting drama, bore, and crying surrounding it, which is infinitely more entertaining. Okay, so I shall read to you from the Book of Nethera, Chapter 1, verses 5 to 7. We're continuing to refine the raid progression paths in Cataclysm. We would like to share something that I've managed to scroll off the screen. There we go. We'd like to share some of the things with you today. Please enjoy. The first of the refinements being made is that we're combining all raid sizes and difficulties into a single lockout. Unlike today, 10 and 25 player modes of a single raid will share the same lockout. You can defeat each raid boss once per week per character. In other words, if you wanted to do both a 10 and 25 person raid in a single week, you need to do so on 2 different characters. Normal versus Heroic mode will be chosen on a per-boss basis in Cataclysm raids. The same way it works in Icecrown Citadel. Obviously, the raid lockout change doesn't apply in pure Icecrown terms, though, as this change goes hand in hand with a few other changes to raid progression in Cataclysm. Okay, that's the first point right there. 10 and 25-man raids are going to be sharing the same lockout. Now, it's difficult to argue for or against this without taking everything else into account. It's very easy to take a single point of this particular set of changes and then say that is bad and then rage against it. The problem is that in doing so, you're taking the whole thing out of context. You're taking away the reason, the rhyme and the rationale behind it, which would make you really incredibly stupid. I'm sorry, it would. But we know that a lot of people are crybabies and a lot of people really don't think things through. So, of course, that has happened. But we're not going to stoop to that level on this show, and we're going to wait, and we'll have a look at the rest of it. So, the next point. 10 to 25-man dungeons. I don't think there's any real need to read the rest of this verbatim. 10 and 25-player dungeons will be roughly the same difficulty. Very similar. And they will drop the exact same items. Now, of course, there's good and bad things about that as well. You'll remember back, or maybe you don't, maybe you should go listen to it, January 2009. Now, I don't think that show's actually on the website. It's probably in the archives on wcradio.com still, so you might want to go and have a look at that. The thing that I said back then, it was a show all the way back then, and this was regarding the Obsidian Sanctum 3 Drakes 10-man fight. This was a big hot button at the time. Was that Blizzard had to make a choice, And the choice was between either separating the 10 and 25-man progression paths to the point where one is clearly inferior to the other, or saying that they are both equal and matching up loot and also matching up the level of difficulty of each one accordingly. Now, I fell on the side of matching them up accordingly. I believe that no matter if you choose 10 or 25 player, you should have a good challenging experience, and one should not be inferior or indeed superior to the other. Now, bear in mind, I used to GM 40-man guilds, I GM'd a 25-man guild, I raided in multiple 25-man guilds the entirety of TBC, I raided in 25-man guilds for Wrath as well, and of course I'm now raiding a 10-man guild. I've been there, done that, and got the t-shirt across all fronts. And I don't really favour one over the other, it's more of a preference at the time kind of thing. I'm doing 10-mans right now because I feel like it. I don't overly support one format over the other. What I would have liked to see, and this is what apparently is happening right now, which to me is a fantastic change, is those two raid formats being brought into some kind of similarity, being put up on the same pedestal and said, look, this is a choice, this is a preference. You pick whatever the hell you want. If you want to do 10-mans, okay. You want to do 25s, okay. We're not going to unduly influence you to one direction or the other. Now, I will go on to that undue influence in due course. There are a couple of other things that I do want to highlight from this before I go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So, 10 and 25 man. They are going to be giving larger numbers of badges and loot to 25-man raiders on a per-raider basis. So we're looking at a loot-to-raider ratio. And the loot-to-raider ratio is significantly higher in 25-man than it will be in 10. And the reason behind that, it's twofold. Firstly, it is to recognise the fact that putting together a 25-man raid, and indeed managing a 25-man raid, is logistically more challenging than doing so with a 10-man group. So they want to reward that. And secondly, it's to ensure that the 25-man format does not die. Now, the question is, what do we mean by die? There are plenty of whiners on the forums right this very second boring their eyes out over this particular issue. They are literally drowning people in their tears. They really are. The forums are a joke right now. Even the MMO Champion forums are pretty bad. There's multiple forums that are... it's not good, ladies and gents. It really is. There is so much bawling. It's horrendous. And they're claiming... shouting it from the rooftops, in fact, 25-man is dead! It's dead! We'll hold the funeral of the 21 noob salute. Or should I say the 25 noob salute. And I don't agree. At any level. So, let's make a start with that. Is 25-man raiding dead as a result of this change? No, that's bollocks. So... they're trying to make sure that 25-man raiding is appropriately rewarded by giving them more loot. As opposed to right now, where they give them better loot. So it's quantity over quality of loot. And that is entirely reasonable. Now, the reason it's reasonable, of course, is the fact that they are generating an equality between the 10-man and 25-man progression paths. They are solidifying the idea. They are enshrining it. They are beating it into a rock, carving it into stone, that both of these paths are equally valid choices. They are preferences. If you want to raid 10, okay. You want to raid 25, okay. One should not be the preferable choice over the other. It should, as much as possible, be a personal decision, and indeed the decision of your guild as to what they want to do. Now, incentivizing the 25-man represents one thing alone, and the thing that represents is quite simply this. It represents the fact that players have a tendency to take the path of least resistance. We saw that in TBC. The easiest way to get epics was arena. And now, the easiest way to get epics is raiding. And naturally, arena popularity has gone down, raiding popularity has gone up. Raiding is easier than it was in TBC, the items are easier to get, and indeed, of course, you can get almost anything with badges. And we've seen a massive increase as well in the number of people running 5-mans, but that's partially thanks to the dungeon system. But even then, the dungeon finder is the path of least resistance. It's a good path of least resistance. I don't object to the presence of it. It's a good system. However, I do object, in fact, to the issue that players have this tendency to take the path of least resistance. Now, if you make 10 and 25 man utterly proportional, so here's your example. You want to make them completely proportional. You do it this way. 10 man, 2 items per boss. 25 man, 5 items per boss. Done. Simple. However, that's not what they want to do. They want to make sure that there are more. We don't know the exact numbers. We have no idea. We also don't know the number of badges, gold. We don't know if they'll put in recipes, things like that. Whatever the case, it comes down to the fact that they need to incentivize it because people suck. That's generally why. You got people that will cry about it. It's like, oh, well, it'll be easier to do this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's whining. It's pointless. You can't make that kind of judgment. It's doomsaying. And what I will say is this. If 25 man does die, then 25 man did not deserve to live to begin with. If the only reason people did 25 man raiding was because they got upgraded shiny versions of what you could get in 10 man, then the system is broken. It's as simple as that. It is. It's broken. That is a crutch. If 25 man raiding is not enjoyable enough in and of itself, if the epic experience, quote unquote, yes, I did just say, if the epic experience is not up to par, then yes, it deserves to die a death. It needs to go away. Simple as that. At the end of the day, the choice is not Blizzard, it's the players. If the players choose not to do 25 man raiding, then, hey, there you go. 25 man raiding is not a viable form of raiding, and apparently it never was. It's as simple as that. Back in the day, 25 man raiding was the only viable choice. 10 mans were there to ease you in, to support the raid scheme. They did not replace it entirely. You could not be a 10 man raider. I'm sorry, you couldn't. Not in TBC. You had 2 instances. Freaking Karazhan, and then something way, way on, over a year on, in the form of Zolomon. Neither of which were even close to being a real progression path. So 25 man was the only choice. Right now, 25 man is by far the preferable choice. You get legendaries. You get certain recipes. You get more badges. You get to do that daily quest. Or indeed the weekly quest that gives you like 10 frost badges. The fights are harder. The loot is better, by far, across the board. And yet, when it comes to hard modes in particular, there is overlap in terms of difficulty. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, those 10-man encounters don't give the same amount of respect, the same amount of recognition. They don't give the same loot. And indeed, at the time of airing, please correct me if I'm wrong here, 10-man Lich King Heroic has not been killed by a purely 10-man guild. That demonstrates to me a fundamental flaw. And it comes on to what I said earlier regarding the raid lockout. Here is the reason that shared raid lockout has to exist. Now, I hear the whining of the entitled. And this time it's not entitled casuals, it's entitled raiders. I don't like the entitled at all. I don't care if you raid, I don't care if you PvP, I don't care if you just sit there and complain on the forums, I don't care if you tweet about other people's podcasts being so offensive. I don't care whatever the hell you do. If you believe you are entitled to something, if you believe you can make demands, and if you believe that you deserve to be handed things on a silver platter, then you are a bad person in general. I'm sorry. Bootstraps and all that jazz. Now here's the issue, ladies and gentlemen. This is what would happen. Right now, we have a situation where no 10-man heroic guild, purely 10-man, has killed Lich King Heroic. Ladies and gentlemen, what does that mean? That means that the fight is not balanced around 10-man gear. It's the same problem we had with OS 3D10 back in the day. It wasn't balanced around 10-man gear. It could only be done by guys with 25-man gear. And of course, we're talking about guys as well that have 25-man gear, 25-man heroic gear, 10-man heroic gear, and maybe even a couple of pieces of normal 10-man. They are just raking it in terms of loot. When you're in a 25-man guild, you can do a 25-man run, you can do a 10-man run. If you've got the benches, you can do 2 10-man runs. Maybe even 3. Yes, indeed. That means you acquire gear at an exponentially larger rate. That means you are better prepared. You have the advantage. You have multiple groups going in there. And you know what that does, ladies and gentlemen? That absolutely trivializes the 10-man progression path. 10-man progression path in Wrath of the Lich King is irrelevant. It is pointless. It is awful. It is just a waste of time. Nobody cares. I'll tell you what. I will celebrate the day when a 10-man hard mode is world-firsted by a 10-man guild. And you want to know when that would never happen? If the entitleds got their way and said, I want to be able to do both on the same character. Yeah, it's wonderful that just by virtue of being in a 25-man guild, you get to do both. The people that choose 10-man guilds don't have that luxury. They have to sort a guild alliance or go pug it, for God's sake. Good luck pugging hard modes, ain't gonna happen. No, these progression paths must be separate. This is about making a choice. There was never a choice before. If you're in a 25-man guild, you can do both. It's not a case of choosing to do both, you just do it. Because you can. 10-man guilds, they don't have a choice. They chose the 10-man path and have been consistently punished throughout this expansion. The promise of 10-man instances all across the board was pretty much thrown into the dirt and stomped on by Blizzard over the past year and a half because they did not design the encounters properly and they did not design the loot progression properly. The stats were terrible. They were not properly optimized. And as a result, we are in the situation we are right now. No 10-man guild has killed Heroic Lich King 10. I said this back in January 2009. Look, it's still true. You don't believe that this is required? Then I present to you Heroic Lich King 10. You're damn right it's required. You're damn right 10-man guilds should be able to compete. And it doesn't matter if they get a world first, a realm first, or if they're 10th on their realm. The fact of the matter is, they deserve to be able to do it without having to worry about 25-man guilds overgeared stomping the content into oblivion. My name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I'm going to play some more Dark Tranquility. This is awesome. Dream Oblivion. I'll be right back after this. Enjoy.
You are listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on CynicalBrit.com.
Yes, indeed, folks, you are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. Am I done on this? No, I'm absolutely not done on this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I've adequately proved my point. So I want to share with you a couple of numbers. This is something that we had a discussion on the VTW Productions forums regarding this particular issue. Now, there's a number of disagreements regarding this, but honestly, this is my show, so I will talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. So, let me discuss the idea of numbers. You know, numbers are nice because numbers are irrefutable. At least they're very hard to refute one way or the other. So, I shall pull up this post and we can talk a few numbers as to why this lockout is necessary. And then we'll talk about a bunch of other things regarding these changes that I, again, view as very positive. So, here's an idea, right? 25-man guild, 10-man guild, competing for a server first. And we're looking at item acquisition. So, let's assume that they're doing the 4-boss raid. Yeah? There's going to be 2 6s, a 4, and a 1 on launch. So, let's assume they're doing the 4. Now, they've killed the first 3 bosses and they're working on the 4th. And this is, say, the first week. Just for the sake of argument, it makes the numbers easier. Right. So, thus far, let's assume 2 items per boss. Killing 3 bosses, the 10-man guild's got 6 epic items. 25-man guild, assuming that you get 5 items per boss, which again, that will be an equal ratio, has 15 epic items. Now, already, potentially, the 25-man guild may have an advantage. It's true. What could happen there is that, depending on the drops, of course, the 10-man guild that they make out of that might end up having all 15 of those epic items. It's possible. It depends. They may have distributed them that way, they may not. But that's not the real point. The real point is this. Say there was no lockout. Imagine all the people wearing those epics. Ooh-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Say there was no lockout, and say they were also able to do 10-man. So they split their raid in 2, and they go head-on in. So let's just say that they split them into 2. And they then go and do the 10-man. Yeah? So they have, between them, also killed an additional 6 bosses. Yeah? 2 raids worth, 3 bosses down. Now, let's look at the ratio of epics per raider. 10-man guild gets 0.6 epic items per raider at that stage of the game. 25-man guild split into 2 10-man groups, 1.35 epic items per raider. That's a lot of items, ladies and gentlemen. That's over double that which the 10-man guild gets. That means you would never ever see a 10-man world first. You'd never ever see a 10-man server first. You would never get that. And the reason you would never get that is because the 25-man guilds would have the gear advantage. They would be streaming ahead. I mean, they're already going to have the gear advantage, bear this in mind. But the good thing is that they're going to have to make the choice between 10 and 25-man. Yeah? And that is going to make them stay in their own corner. Yeah? Stay with their own playstyle. Do you think that's bad? If I were a 25-man raider right now, and I must say I may end up being, again, a 25-man raider, I flip between the two. And this is, to be honest, my real thing with it, yeah? I'm not really biased one way or the other. I mean, I'm in a 10-man guild right now, but I could very well be in a 25-man guild when Cataclysm launches. No doubt about it. And you're always going to get a situation whereby the people that play the most are the ones who win. I mean, let's be honest here. The people that play the most are going to bypass this anyway. Eh? Admittedly, they're going to be a tiny minority. You're going to have 25-man guilds with a bunch of alts go do that and whatever. But the point is that at least there is a degree of equality. And that equality is going to match up. You can't simply say that both are equal and both progression paths are equal when you then allow one progression path to go and stomp all over the other. You can't do it. It's a philosophical mistake. If you're looking at the design philosophy of this, if you're looking for equality, then equality also requires separate but equal. In this scenario, it does. I'm sorry, if you don't like that, deal with it. You don't have a choice in the matter. Now, I understand that some people say, oh, well, there's not going to be enough content, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you might be right. Honestly, you might be. You're also looking at an expansion where they expect you to roll an alt. I mean, they're redoing all of the stuff at the start. They're redoing the old world, all this kind of crazy stuff. And, they want you to roll an alt. They're coming up with new race class combinations. They're completely redoing the racial so that they don't suck. They want you to roll an alt. And I might even roll an alt, and I hate alts. The idea of a troll druid is appealing to me. Whether or not you want to roll an alt, of course, is a personal decision. But at the end of the day, I'm happy to see this separation. I think this is a very positive thing for raiding. Now, this is not all that's been said here. So let's go on and have a look at some of the rest of it. You want to pull up your page right now if you want to follow along with this. So, nice bit of vindication here. And this is the start of what I view as a signed and dated notarized confession. This entire post is a confession. And you know what it says? It says we screwed up. We screwed up in Wrath, and we are changing basically all of it. We're going to keep the good stuff, of which there wasn't an awful lot, and we're going to take a few steps back, and we're going to learn the lessons from TBC. We're going to learn the lessons from Vanilla, even. And then we're going to go with that. And we're going to build a new raiding scene. And this is how we're going to do it. So, first things first. Nice quote here. We recognize that very long raids can be a barrier for some players, but we also want to provide enough encounters for the experience to feel epic. For the first few raid tiers, our plan is to provide multiple, smaller raids. I like... Did you just hear that, by the way? It's the sound of victory. And victory sounds something along the lines of this.
You dare look upon the host of souls! I shall devour you all!
How long have people been saying it? How long have I been saying it on this show that, yes, that is what you should be doing? Multiple smaller raids. Choice. Change of scenery. Means you don't get burned out so easily. Always nice. But hey, there you go. And you know what I also heard? Did you read that? The first few tiers of raiding will... The first few? Okay. How many is that? Well, it can't be 2, because they would have said couple. It can't be 1, because they wouldn't have said few, which indicates a plural. And indeed, tiers, S on the end, kind of gives it away. 3 tiers? 4 tiers? Maybe. Are we going to get more tiers of raiding? Does that mean more raid content? Because that's a good thing. That's a very good thing, ladies and gentlemen. Said it last week on the show. I'm bored. I'm bored because there isn't enough raid content. Seems to me that they're recognising that that is an issue. Oh yes. Smells good, ladies and gentlemen. Smells like vindication. So, they're talking about, think of how you can raid Serpent Shrine and Tempest Keep separately. You know what else they say? The dungeons themselves bring different environments and will provide some variety of location and visual style as well as separate raid lockouts. Yes, yes, and yes again. God, it feels good to be right. I feel good an awful lot of the time. Appears my hat is popping off my head. It's getting rather too big. Right. Now, more things, more good stuff. We do like how gating bosses over time allows the community to focus on individual encounters instead of just racing to the end, so we'll most likely keep that design moving forward. That's not so good, honestly. We don't plan to impose attempt limitations again, though, except in very rare cases of optional rare bosses like Algernon. There you go. So, the gate... They don't really describe the gating too much, except with the next sentence here. Heroic mode may not be open from day one, but will become available after defeating normal mode perhaps as little as once or twice. Now that sounds really bad, doesn't it? Because, like, oh no! That's even worse than what it is right now. All you have to do is defeat normal mode once. Aha! Not the case. That is not the case. What they mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is that you will be able to kill a boss, and you will be able to, after a few kills of it, move on and kill it in heroic mode while still doing everything else in normal. Yes, indeed. Quote, we might allow you to change between 10 and 25 on a per encounter basis for additional flexibility, and we may allow you to change between the difficulty on a per boss basis. Yeah. That's good. That's a really good thing. I'm alright with that gating. I said it earlier in the mailbag segment. I'll say it again, ladies and gentlemen. I am alright with that system. It's fine. That's a kind of gating I can live with. Get the boss on farm status, then you get to do it on heroic mode. Because Lord knows, I cannot face another kill of freaking Marigar, especially after they nerfed it into the ground. God. Here, play these 10 boring bosses. Maybe Putricide might provide you with mild challenge even though you now have them on farm status. Enjoy the hours and hours of repetition. Yeah, to hell with that, ladies and gents. To hell with that. Now, they talk about tuning as well. We want people to jump into the first raids pretty quickly, but we also don't want them to overshadow the heroic 5-player dungeons and more powerful quest rewards. Oh, quest rewards! I don't remember those things. What are they again? I don't remember. From the last year and a half where quest rewards were effectively pointless. I don't remember any of that. Bringing in quests to give epics. Oh, look, there's a sensible idea that should have been in there from the get-go. You're damn right. The progression path doesn't just start at 85. And indeed, it doesn't just start when you start raiding. There is progression before that. There is leveling, and then there is optimization. There is building the power of your character to the level where it can take on the content ahead of you. And in doing so, you have an opportunity. That opportunity is to vary things up by providing a set of challenging and enjoyable 5-man heroics, as well as sets of epic quests, which provide good storyline, they provide a lot of fun and enjoyment, good group content, and something different. Something that's not instanced. Something that's out in the open world, where you interact with other people. That is universally positive in every possible respect. It really is. Now, they go on to say, we'll be designing the first few raid zones, assuming that players have accumulated some blue gear from dungeons, crafted equipment, or quest rewards. In general, we want you and your guild members to participate in and enjoy the level up experience. Okay, that's fine. To be fair, that's really how it's been to begin with. No problem at all there whatsoever. I'm okay with that run-up. I'm okay with ramping up to it. Now, what I would hope to see is those 5-mans be designed in a genuinely challenging manner that does not get incredibly boring. You will get to the point, ladies and gentlemen, it's unfortunate, it's sad, but it happens, that you will overgear the 5-man content to the point where it is boring. What I would suggest at that point to Blizzard is to ramp up the difficulty based on the average item level of people in question. Now, if you can overgear a heroic 5-man, then you get to the point where it is a pointless waste of time. It is a grind. That's not fun at all. Nobody likes that. I certainly hope not. I'm sure there's a few masochists out there. They might even listen to terrible podcasts. Who knows? The only explanation I can think of. Some people might enjoy the repetition over and over and over again. Oh, it's a lovely social experience, isn't it? I get to meet new internet friends. Die so hard, seriously. I'm sorry, I don't care about your nice, lovely little internet friends. If they affect the difficulty and the challenge and the enjoyment of my encounters, then to hell with your internet friends. Down a well they go. A big, big well. Hopeless. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen. This is, in my opinion, by far, the most positive set of changes I have ever seen for raiding. The only minor issue that I've got is the gating, but even then, it is certainly better than what we've got now. It is a marked and massive improvement. I say to all those that say 25-man is dead, it will only die if you let it. If you're a 25-man raider, and your sole reason for doing that is because you wanted more powerful items and bragging rights, then I'm sorry, you're doing it wrong. How about picking the style which you enjoy the most? If you enjoy 10-mans the most, then do 10-mans. Count yourself blessed. Blizzard is finally giving you a way out. You hate 25-man so much. Well, look, you don't have to do them anymore. Isn't it wonderful? As far as I'm concerned, 25-man raiders crying about the death of 25-man raids are, in themselves, secret haters. They're in the closet 10-man raiders. Indeed. They are tenophobic. They're just waiting to come out of that closet and say, I am a 10-man raider, and I'm fabulous. They actually secretly hate 25-man raiding, because if they loved it, and if they liked it, then they wouldn't give a damn if everyone else was doing 10s. In fact, they'd be more unique. They would really have the bragging rights then, wouldn't they? We're the only guild in the world still doing 25-man raids. Look at us, we're awesome. We have the logistical capabilities to outstrip everyone else on the planet. Here's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. Blizzard is giving you the opportunity to make a choice for the first time. And that choice is quite simply, which do you enjoy more? Which gives you more pleasure? Which is more fun? Which suits your group the best? You telling me that's a bad thing? You mad? My name is TotalBiscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on cynicalbrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. I will be right back after this. Enjoy.
You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on cynicalbrit.com.
And now for the latest in raiding news. A union of all the bosses in Northrend is protesting outside of Azeroth's highest court, demanding that a huge number of guilds be banned for what they called leet hacks. We spoke to the leader of the group, Mr. Putricide, who had this to say. Terrible news, everyone! We're getting steamrolled on a weekly basis by thousands of guilds, and it's all because of UGT Ventrilo servers. Crystal clear, low-latency voice-over IP allows guilds to communicate quickly and effectively, so they can down bosses with ease.
Sir?
What is it, Rodface?
We have a UGT server too, sir! We got it from UGT-servers.com!
What? Why wasn't I invited?
Well, Arthur said you were too cheery, and he's concerned that your malleable goo will stain the carpet.
Your guild is a community, and communities want to stay in touch. Whether you're in an intense arena match, an epic raid, or just hanging out and shooting the breeze, you need an always-on Ventrilo server from UGT-servers.com. Crystal clear quality, low latency, and of course, low prices. UGT-servers.com are so good, they should be considered an exploit. Get yours today. You're listening to Blue Please here on cynicalbrit.com with myself, TotalBiscuit. Yes, indeed. Okay, so I'll cover a few things before I go on. I would like to remind you all that Shoutcraft is happening on Saturday at 5 p.m. British Standard Time. It's 12 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Central European Summer Time. tinyurl.com/shoutcraft. It's always a good laugh. Pittles really seem to love it. We had like almost 800 people watching last Saturday. Let's see if we can beat it. I'll give away some more beta keys Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? And also the beta giveaway on the channel on YouTube, youtube.com/TotalHalibut. I'll be announcing the first 5 of those tonight. There is a new video sitting in the private encoding segment, just waiting to be properly processed into HD. Really big 21-minute match. Very good indeed. I'm sure you will love it. So if you're into the StarCraft 2s, then it would be worth you tuning into both of those things. In the meantime, let's talk about World of Warcraft, shall we? It's been difficult to enthuse myself lately, but with all of this information, it's good to have something to look forward to. And to be honest, I don't think I'm going to be raiding for much longer at this rate. The guild, in general, has lost the fire for it. They're not interested anymore. Getting stuck on Syndragoza because 2 of your raiders constantly lag due to graphical effects on the screen that they can't seem to get rid of, that's a bit of a problem. It makes it almost impossible to kill the boss. We would love to start hard modes, but it can't happen as a direct result of that. Pain in the ass. Whatever the case, I'll probably be going back to Star Trek Online for a little while, because they've just implemented difficulty settings for every single mission. Very cool idea. Something that WoW could perhaps learn from right there. You get to go to a mission, you get to pick 3 levels of difficulty. The harder you do it on, the more ships there are, the harder they hit, the harder they are to kill, of course, the harder the mission is, but you get rewarded better. Yeah, you get really nice stuff. So that sounds ideal. I mean, the big problem I had with Star Trek Online, funnily enough, was that it was too easy. What's the point in having a really awesome and elegant combat system whereby it takes into account maneuvering, shield arcs, weapon arcs, things like that, and yet then all you need to do to win is hit the space bar? Yeah, that's not good at all. So it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy that. So any of you fancy reactivating your accounts, the Cynical Fleet is up and there are plenty of us ready to go. Alternatively, of course, you can wait till May the 7th when they're going to be having a free trial as well as Recruit a Friend kicking off. Sounds like a good idea to me. Okay, so let's talk about the other change. This was somewhat overshadowed, of course, by the colossal drama surrounding this raid change. And this is regarding badges. Badges, mushroom, and snake. Mostly badges, however. So, what's going to be happening? Well, there's going to be changes in regards to the way that badges work. Indeed, badges, technically, aren't going to exist anymore. Now, before you get too excited, bear in mind that this is a phantom change. It's not in any way, shape, or form a big change. It doesn't get rid of badges. It doesn't get rid of all of the problems surrounding badges at all. Not at all. What it does do is it makes badges just that little bit more sensible. What it's effectively doing, and you can go check this out on MMO Champion, I'll also put a link in the show notes on cynicalbrit.com for you. Changes are going to be happening with the badges in terms of both PvP and PvE. So, the different tiers of badges are gone. There are only going to be 2 tiers of badges at any given time. And they're both going to be point-based. Now, PvE is going to have hero points and it's going to have valor points. Hero points are, according to this change, low tier, easy to get PvE points. The maximum cap to how many you can own will exist, but there's no cap on how quickly you can get them. Earned from most dungeons, currently like the Emblems of Triumph. There's also going to be valor points. High tier, harder to get PvE points, maximum cap to how many you can own, as well as a cap to how many you can earn per week. Earned from Dungeon Finder, Daily Heroic, and from raids, most like Emblems of Frost. Okay. Now, what's going to be happening is that every time they increase the tier of raiding, they introduce a new tier with a new level of gear, and they are moving everything down a peg. So, any gear that could be gotten with valor points then becomes available with hero points. So instead of having 4 kinds of badges like you have right now, you only ever have 2. Now, this is not a real change. This doesn't in any way, shape or form mitigate the problems with the badge system. It is for convenience sake and for the sake of clarity. That's it. I would have loved to say I was excited by this change, but it's procedural. It's a mechanical change. It might as well be a UI alteration. That's all it is. It's nothing special at all. That's the really sad thing about it. An opportunity right there to change everything. An opportunity to, say, remove the ability to get tier 10 epics from running Utgard freaking Keep. What about that as an opportunity? Nope. Not going to be happening. Not going to be happening at all. here's the new badge system, folks. Same as the old badge system. And PvP is kind of getting a similar treatment with honor and conquest points. The harder to get stuff, so that's the tier system right there. Now, it's sad to see that they have stuck with this old idea, with the idea of tiered badge system advancing the way that it is. Now, the way that tiered badge system should work, and bear in mind, this badge system will be okay for the first 6 months or so. It will. Because it will separate the scrubs from those who are able to do the harder content. That's it. It's the way that it used to be back at the start of this particular expansion, when they were giving the badges of heroism or whatever they were for 5-man heroics and 10-man stuff, and the badges of valor for 25-man. So they had clearly stipulated the difficulty levels and had given appropriate rewards for that, and I'm fully in support of that. The problem is that when you advance the tiers, you stop giving appropriate rewards. My apologies. So, there are two ways of looking at what is appropriate and what is not in terms of loot. The first way of looking at it is that you should get a certain level of loot for doing a certain level of difficulty. So, if you are able to kill something at tier 8, you should get tier 8 epics. If you are killing something at tier 9, you should get tier 9 epics, etc., etc., ad infinitum. However, the opposing view to this, which holds some validity, is that appropriate rewards are based on the stuff that you're about to go into. So, in order to successfully tackle tier 10, you need tier 9. However, you can now get tier 9 from Naxxramas. You can get it from badges if you want. You can get it from heroics if you want. Now, of course, on first observation, that appears not to be an appropriate or proportionate reward for doing a level of content which is quite frankly trivial. However, you run into a problem. The problem is simply this. The progression path is broken. Fundamentally broken. How is it broken? Raid obsolescence. That's why. Raids become obsolete when you get too many tiers of them. So, let's go back in the midst of time, ladies and gents, and let's have a look at how the content at the start of Wrath worked. You had Naxxramas, your big raid, you then had a couple of small ones. Yeah? You had Obsidian Sanctum, and you had the Eye of Eternity. And you also had VOA, which I wish would die in a fire. And hopefully will not be coming back in any way, shape, or form, and there doesn't appear to be any indication of that in Cataclysm, and let me say, hallelujah for that. Awful, awful idea. The worst idea, perhaps. Trivializing raiding. So, you have that set up, and you had your heroism and you had your valor. And then you introduced a new form. Yeah? You were able to go into tier 8, and you were in tier 8 stuff. And it's after that things really got wrong. Yeah, things started to go badly at that point, because once they introduced Triumph badges, they made Conquest available for running anything. Yeah? So, which is more difficult, Naxxramas or Ulduar? Answer should be obvious, it's Ulduar. And yet, you were being given similar level epics, indeed some identical epics, for running Naxxramas as you were for running Ulduar, which makes no sense whatsoever. But the problem is, of course, that once you get to this point, say you get to tier 10. Yeah, let's take the situation right now. Who runs Naxxramas outside of the weekly? Nobody. Simple as that. And the weekly is not even what I would call running Naxxramas. It's pick one boss, kill it, get the hell out of there. Anyone looking to get level, tier 7 epics, then tier 8 epics, then tier 9 epics, they can't do it anymore. They can't. They can't follow that progression path, which means people late to the party are boned. If you got up there at the start, if you started at the start of Wrath and you progressed at a reasonable level, then you are okay. Yeah? You progress and you don't really have to worry about anything in that regard. You'll get your set at the appropriate difficulty level, then you'll get the next set at the appropriate difficulty level, then the next, and blah, blah, blah. And that's fine to some degree. But still, I object on principle to the idea that someone can get epics that I had by putting in way less effort. That seems to trivialize everything, doesn't it? It's against the principles, it breaks the progression curve. However, I understand why Blizzard puts it in, because raid obsolescence is a factor. Nobody wants to run the old stuff anymore. So how do you fix it? Well, there's a couple of ways. Firstly, what you can do is you can look at the idea of providing normal and heroics for everything, which is exactly what's going to be happening. I think this may be something that people haven't really realized. The idea of being able to do hard modes of previous instances, which still reward good loot, give cool achievements, and provide a fun challenge, will mitigate raid obsolescence. It will. Right, if there was a hard mode, say heroic Naxxramas, would you do it? Well, perhaps that's a bad question, because Naxxramas is the most overused raid in the entirety of WoW. In the history of World of Warcraft, nobody wants to go back in there. That's going to mitigate some of the raid obsolescence right there. And that will help. However, it depends on whether or not those hard modes are gear-intensive or not. Because if they're intensely gear-intensive, that's a terrible sentence, I don't care, then you're going to run into the same issue. New players aren't going to get to run that content, so they're going to miss out. We're talking about players who maybe have rolled up alts, and they want to see the instance from the perspective of another class. But more to the point, you've got people that have not reached that level yet. People that have started the game later than everyone else and are still leveling up. They miss out. When was the last time that you saw a big raid on Naxxramas? Remotely regular. Does that happen? I would expect that maybe it does from time to time, but it's pretty rare. I have not seen one on my server for ages. Ulduar, same point. Ulduar hard modes, of course, even worse. No one wants to go do those. How do you fix it? Well, while the 10-man hard mods will help, and they will 10-man and 25, of course, of all instances. That will be helpful. It's not the complete solution, for the reasons I've just given. But as far as I'm concerned, what Blizzard needs to do is properly incentivize going back into those old dungeons by giving them a twist. They've got to do something different. Now, there are a couple of possibilities. The first of these is a remix mode. I'm suggesting changing boss mechanics round, altering boss mechanics, maybe even changing the entire order of the instance, shaking it up, putting trash packs in different places, putting bosses in different places, mixing it up, shaking it up and saying, hey, you can go back here and you can see new stuff. Maybe rotate some loot in. Maybe move some loot in from a previous dungeon, or indeed a current one. Say you're doing tier 8 content, and some Ulduar items appeared in tier 7, but they remixed the tier 7 content so that it was actually a little bit harder now. Maybe they've changed the mechanics around. That would mix things up. That would make people go back there. Now, another suggestion is a boss rush mode. Blizzard seems to have embraced the idea of multiple difficulty settings, but they seem to have ignored what a number of different games allow for. They allow for different ways of experiencing their content once you've beaten it the first time. Boss rush. It's something from Spectacle Fighters. You'll find it in games like Bayonetta. I believe games like Devil May Cry and probably other things like that also have it. And boss rush is simply cutting out the fat and doing what's enjoyable about raiding. Same principle for a Spectacle Fighter. You know, the big deal about games like God of War and things like that is the idea of killing big bosses. Killing gods, indeed. And yet, you don't really fancy doing that again if the boss isn't harder, and if you don't get rid of the crap that's between it. So once I've beaten an instance into the floor, why don't you, say Blizzard, allow me to boss rush it? Do all the bosses and none of the trash. Literally. And then add in a few elements to it. Firstly, a sidekick mode. How about you yield additional rewards when you bring in people to that boss rush that do not have the level of gear that you do? Yeah, that they are not overgeared. In fact, they might even be undergeared. If they are appropriate level of gear and you bring them in, you gain additional rewards. Perhaps they're granted additional rewards as well. Guaranteed loot drops, guaranteed badges, things like that. And what you can also do is you can make it competitive. You can make boss rush mode a competitive thing. You can have it actually time how long it takes you to clear the instance. And maybe link achievements, link rankings into it, things like that. Now, the point of the matter is simply this. This badge system is as bad as the old one. If you want to alleviate the issues whereby new players are balked they are in serious trouble when trying to get onto the level of content that other people are currently on, then you have to incentivize going back to old instances in a way that is fun, enjoyable, unique, interesting, and doesn't make me want to blow off my own face. How about that? Wouldn't that be lovely? My name is TotalBiscuit. You're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. Be right back after the break with the illusion of choice. Where's the button? Yes, indeed.
You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Please. Music was removed to comply with copyright law. If you'd like to hear the music, tune into the live stream on Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT. That's 3 p.m. EST, only on CynicalBrit.com.
Yes, indeed, folks, the illusion of choice. Time where we pick the last topic of the show from your emails, and we might talk about it. I like this one. This is topical. Topics are always good when they're topical. Yes. See? Well, I'll make you a topic you can't refuse. So, here we go. To the angry, nasty host of shows.
You dare look upon the host of souls! I shall devour you all!
Who lives in the mountains? I don't actually have that sample, so you're not getting it. As you have remarked, being an MMO champion reader, no doubt you know about the AVR mod posted there earlier this week. Now, it's a fantastic mod, and I'm loving it, but it does raise the question, when do add-ons go too far? And do too helpful add-ons have a detrimental effect on the skill of the players as they become too reliant on them, as happened when D-Curse was removed and Chroma went from free kill to nigh on impossible. Can I get a shout out to my guild Ancient Prophecies for being my guild, my friend Evok for helping me not suck at StarCraft 2, and a special shout out to Bobby K, I mean Blizzard, for making 25-mans untenable in Cataclysm. Ha! Yeah, right. You can have it anyway. You're allowed to express your opinion, you're just wrong. Right, okay. It's a really good question. A really, really, really good question. When do they go too far? I suppose the logical way to say it initially would be the time they go too far is when Blizzard says they go too far. So when they say, this add-on is not kosher anymore. In the meantime, pretty much game on for almost everybody. Now, in my personal opinion, it goes too far when it successfully removes the enjoyment and challenge from the fight. There are certain things that should be part of Blizzard's UI already. A lot of things have been implemented, things like threat meter, things like unit frames. That kind of thing was not in the UI initially. Things like scrolling combat text, again, not in the UI initially. Now what that says to me is that Blizzard realizes the point and the purpose behind mods, and that their UI is not perfect. Now, they're also going to try and improve their UI in Cataclysm. But as to when mods go too far, it's such a subjective thing. Some people are okay with certain mods and some people aren't. And that has to come down to a personal choice as well as a guild choice. Personally, I will use mods that make my life a bit easier and make it easier to absorb information. That's mostly what my mods do. I mean, things like KSK, for instance. KSK is a way of managing my guild Suicide Kings list. It makes things very convenient. That's a cool mod. But then you've got things like the Blood Queen mod, which we use, but you've got to wonder at that point, is it the mod that's wrong for making the encounter easier, or is it the encounter that's wrong for requiring the mod to begin with? Now, I think when people actually read the mechanics of the Blood Queen fight, they realized from the very start that someone was going to come up with a mod to trivialize the idea. Now, the idea behind that fight is that you will occasionally get bitten by the Blood Queen. You'll get a curse, and you'll do more damage. But after about a minute or so, you will have to bite somebody. You will have to bite another member of your raid. Now, to do that, and to do it properly, you've got to make sure that you bite someone who isn't already cursed. Now, the mod automatically assigns that based on a list that you set up. So if I set up my guild, say in this mod, and I set up an order, and the first person to get bitten will then be told, you are going to go bite this guy, and the mod will tell them to do that, and they go do it. Now, there is a level of difficulty and challenge in coordinating that without a mod. However, to me, it seems like a pretty dumb mechanic to begin with. And especially in 25-man, the sheer chaos and nonsense of trying to find a very specific person without being told by a mod where to go is a pain in the ass. Is that a good mechanic? It isn't really, though, when you think about it, is it? If a mechanic can be entirely trivialized by a mod, then I've got to ask how good that mechanic was to begin with. There are some mechanics that, no matter how many mods you have, are still going to kick your ass. They are good mechanics. They are solid mechanics. There are, say, mods that can make the mechanic clearer. They can make it more obvious. They can help you manage your information better. But they can't make it not kill you. That's the most important thing. To be honest, I don't really have anything else to say on this matter. It's a personal choice. It's a choice between you and your guild as to what you want to use. Now, if you are going for world firsts and things like that, then obviously you're going to use every advantage you can possibly get. Now, when Blizzard decides to declare this is a bad mod, then fine. I think everyone can happily accept that if Blizzard says so, then that's just the way that it is. Otherwise, hey, use whatever the hell you want. I don't really have an opinion on the matter beyond that. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. You have been listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. Thank you ever so much for listening. As always, you have been a fantastic audience. Go check out the rest of the shows. Got Gaming the System that's going to be on Sunday. And we've also got the one and only Shoutcraft on Saturday. Hope to see as many of you there as possible, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be giving away some more beta keys. And hopefully you're just there for the entertainment. But hey, I'm absolutely fine with bribing the hell out of the listeners with a chance to win beta keys. Shout-out time, ladies and gentlemen. Send them on in to the Murloc at CynicalBrit.com. That is the Murloc at CynicalBrit.com. Alternatively, you can send me a message on either the IRC or the Tiny Chat. Send it over, or you can tweet me, ladies and gentlemen. That is twitter.com/TotalBiscuit. Person asking when Shoutcraft is 5 p.m. British Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern on tinyurl.com/Shoutcraft on Saturday. That's the way you do it, ladies and gents. That is the way we do it. Okay. Let's do some shout-outs. A shout-out to Illuminati of Kulturas EU for just being awesome. That's from Frost Shock, yeah. A shout-out to Navarix for being made a fail. That's from Anders Thunberg. Wow, we really have two sides of the spectrum this time, don't we? I'm a level 64 troll hunter, says Kevin Lewis. Well, congratulations. Here's a pat on the head. And I'd like a shout-out for my beautiful wife, Angela, that I love, exclamation point, number 111111. Well, she certainly doesn't love you after that, I can guarantee. Shout-out to Marduk, who I will be having plenty of discussions about these changes with later. That's from Black Book. I am entirely fine with you guys discussing your opinions. You are happy to hold them. I'm totally cool with it. Go post on the forum about it. Hold whatever the hell opinion you want. I don't care. Just don't force it on me. A shout out to the Murky on the turntable. That's from Dip. A shout out to me for dining 14 IRL tomorrow, and to my guild Knights of the Round at Ultimate US. Wow, it's a 14-man raid on Sean Caster's table. It's crazy. A shout out to Prestige from Ray. A shout out to Grey Wolf Tribe on Earthen Ring. That's from Cradilius. And a shout out to Prestige from Ray. Wait a minute, I just said that. I'm going to have to make that a nice little running joke. A shout out to Senseline, my girlfriend, for being awesome. That's from Rukan. An epic 2, please. Yes, I did just say epic. Yes, quite. What else have we got? A shout out to Himatile. Himatile? Yes. Himatile, guild leader of the Honorbound, for being awesome. That's from Blood Guzzler. That'll give you cancer, you know. Seriously, blood is carcinogenic like that. A shout out to me for getting StarCraft 2 beta sometime next week. It's from Mass. And let's see what else we've got. Plenty more. Oh, yes, plenty more. A shout out to the Dutch Queen, being able to celebrate her birthday without being half run over some. That's from Avatat. Yes, indeed, that's always nice. A shout out to Angelo, just like every week. That's from Onin. And a shout out for Nymph for dinging my 7th level 80. You're crazy. Please go play another game. Can I also get a shout out for giving 2 of my friends Left 4 Dead and playing a lot with them so they can learn the game. Okay, I suppose that counts as a different game. And a shout out to Batman bin Superman, the best minifig in the LEGO Universe beta. I have literally no idea what that is. That's from Dunkirk. Right, I am out of here, ladies and gents. You have been fantastic as always. Thank you ever so much for listening. And if you missed any of this show, feel free to catch it on iTunes and the archives on cynicalbrit.com. You know what I fancy? Fancy a bit of Bad Company 2. Anyone wants to come on down and play some Bad Company 2 with me? I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and then I'm going to head on the Bad Company 2 server. So you want to come on down, please, by all means. And last but by no means least, I want to give a shout-out to everyone that's in the video wall. I want to give a shout-out to that spinning murky, that empty chair, that token black guy who is somehow in this channel and seems to love heavy metal, which is really good. He's got an epic beard as well, so I suppose I can be happy about that. He is a good contrast to my pasty white geek skin. Also, Black Book, who has a giant hat and a Bloodstock t-shirt. Avatar is wearing some kind of basket on his head. Vainlash is taking down Festigut by the looks of it. Noob. Isapara. I have nothing to say about that guy, other than the fact that he seems to be giving the horns to the channel. You're doing it wrong. You don't stick your thumb out, you knob. Mini F is apparently some kind of Mexican terrorist. Chudboy05 seems to be awfully bemused by the entire thing. And Cradulus is, in fact, LARPing Metro 2033. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's been TotalBiscuit. You've been listening to Blue Please. You are a fantastic audience. I will catch you next time, same place, same channel, Fridays at 7 p.m. for the pre-show. British Standard Time's 2 p.m. Eastern with the main show, the main event, 1 hour afterwards. I am out of here, folks. We shall end it with some epic. Yes, I did just say epic. Good night. Epic.
You have been listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please, WoW's #1 shock jock show, only on cynicalbrit.com. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment on the Cynical Brit website or write a review of the show on iTunes. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.